better at 1,000. Now he's selling stuff like $25,000.
Right.
Back then, he said that the reason you guys can't sell at that price point is because you don't believe that it's worth it, and people can sense that on the webinar. Me, I believe my thing is worth it based on what it can help people do. So that kind of like light bulb moment, and then I've been selling stuff $1,000 and up ever since 2011 or sometimes 3,000.
What's up, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Traffic Sales and Profits Show. I'm your host, Lamar, and today we got like a great episode, right? We're going to cover a lot of ground and get you a lot of nuggets. I'm here today with Ron Douglas. Ron, you are a New York Times bestseller, investor, entrepreneur, a webinar expert. Anything I missed?
Family man.
Husband, right? I want to say husband, dad, Hooper, right? Shopper, right?
Facebook comedian. Hooper, yeah, play hoop.
What's up, man? Listen, I can say, before we get started, we'll say this. Your Facebook post inspired me.
Appreciate it.
Just this week, I said, what would Ron do, right? And I put a post on my page about the Freaknik documentary on Hulu. And I said, it's only one way you can find out if you in it. I did a whole thing, put the image up, and then I told them, come to TSP Live, because we got Jermaine Dupree there. You can ask him yourself. I said, this is how Ron moves tickets. I said, what would Ron Douglas do at a time like this, when he need to get people's attention and then move tickets? Man, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me here. It's a huge honor. You know, we've been friends, but I also follow you, and you're one of the more inspiring people that I follow because you're always on it. You're always like a leader. You're always doing your thing, and you're always just motivated to get to new levels. And me, someone, you know, occasionally I get complacent. I watch your podcast and I get inspired again. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, you have, I want to share some stuff with the people in a minute. But first, I'm going to talk about your backstory. You had like a very interesting backstory. Originally from New York, right? But you didn't like just start as an entrepreneur. You actually worked in financials, right?
Yeah. Worked on Wallstreet for JP Morgan Chase for quite some time. Hated it. While I was there, got my MBA. I became a chartered financial analyst. I was really going to do that as a career. And your audience will appreciate this. So one day I had this like mentor. He was a black guy named George Gilmer, and he was like, he called himself the Diversity Initiative. He was like the only black guy that was a senior vice president.
Okay.
And one day he's in the elevator with one of these executive vice presidents, and they're talking about the need to hire more black people, right?
Yep.
And he says, the guy claims like, I don't see why I have to lower my standards just to meet some diversity initiative. So it didn't occur to him that you could hire a black person or a minority, the same standard or better.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it just like, he just saw it as being forced to lower his standards. So when he told me that story, I knew there was no place for me there, and I had to really get back on my entrepreneurial grind.
So what was the first thing you did out of that? Did you start as an entrepreneur?
Right. Well, I was selling cookbooks, actually.
Okay.
So I was doing this part-time. So I was like, had my part-time gig, and I was working there full-time. And then I just focused more on that. So I had a book called America's Most Wanted Recipes that I was self-publishing. It was a book about restaurant recipes. It was, at the time, it was just an ebook on this network called ClickBank. And I had other sites that were promoting this ebook, and being that, you know, it's an ebook, it's pretty much 100% profit for people to download it. So I was able to pay them, 50% commission just for referring me customers.
What was the price of the ebook back then?
It was $19.97.
Okay.
Back then, yeah. So I had a funnel back then where I had a membership site and upsell, and this was 2003, 2004.
Okay.
So I was kind of
probably was killing it back then. People ain't know what they probably were just clicking everything. Buy.
I was doing all right. It got big. I built up a list of like 275,000 subscribers because people that didn't want to buy that little ebook, I offered them free sample recipes and whatnot. So I built up this huge recipe list, and that led to other things that we could talk about.
Okay, yeah, let's go into it. So, because you went from that to actually being, like, how did you go from, okay, ebook, I'm on the internet making this money, building a list, to like being traditionally published?
Right. Well, one of the big things I did was go to events and meet people and interact with people. And one of the guys I met was Tom Bill. He's actually the MC for our event, Webinar.com now. But he was working with Jim Kelly at the time, and he was helping Jim Kelly get publicity.
Buffalo Bills quarterback?
Buffalo Bills quarterback, yeah. And he told me, I told him my story, and, you know, we talked, and he was like, well, this is much bigger than a little ebook on ClickBank. This could be huge. You could get publicity for this. This could be on TV. You can get a cooking show, all this stuff. So he kind of opened my eyes to the possibility. So at that event, I started asking around if anyone knew like a literary agent or publicist, and got introduced to a few people, and I started going down that road. And that's what happened. So I happened to find a publicist that was friends with Mike Fossane, who's also a speaker at America. And his girlfriend worked at the New York Post. So they got me the story of a local Long Island man figures out the secret to KFC's original recipe.
Did you know what is 11 secret spices?
Yeah, it's 11 herbs and spices. So I just had a copycat version because the book was about copycat recipes.
Yeah.
So they got that story in the New York Post, and then living in New York was an advantage too at the time because all the local stations, the Foxes, the Good Morning America, they all filmed from New York.
Right.
And they all look at the local papers for potential stories to bring on. So that thing kind of went viral. I started getting on a bunch of different shows. I ended up getting a book deal with Simon & Schuster to do 2 books. And to date, I've done 6 books with Simon & Schuster, 3 books self-published. I've sold about 1.7 million copies of those books, and it really spearheaded my career into what I'm doing now.
At what point did you leave your job?
Right. So,
because I'm so like you got this going on the side. It seemed like, was this like a short period of time that everything kind of exploded quickly, or still was like over the course of years?
So I was focusing on that business I was self-publishing from 2003 to 2007, and I had sold about 60,000 copies self-published just through the ClickBank, and I started using Amazon, and then I got the book deal in 2008. So I actually didn't leave my job. I got laid off in 2007, a month before my son was born.
Wow.
Exactly a month. I had just bought a house, and that was one of the toughest phone calls I ever had to make, call home to my wife. I had a BlackBerry at the time, I remember. And I remember calling home and saying, look, I just lost my job. I don't know what we're going to do. She's at home 8 months pregnant.
Wow.
You know, and she was just calm and said, this is what you wanted. Like, this is going to work out. I believe in you. This is going to be a thing. And I promised her that by the time she was 45, that she could come home, retire from the corporate world, work with me. So that was one of the biggest accomplishments, was being able to do that, like fulfill that promise. And, you know, now she works with me. She's spent more time with the kids, and she's been that stay-at-home mom. I'm going off on a tangent, but
no, that's good.
Basically in 2007, July 2007, got laid off, never looked back, and all type of doors opened for me. So that event I was talking about was also in 2007. So everything kind of fell in place.
Let me ask you, when all these things were happening, were you like, okay, I'm going to blow the roof off this thing? Or were you like, yeah, like it's like people telling me it could be, because all the time people come up and be like, hey, this could be this good. Were you like, hey, like I'll just walk out through the paces and see, or were you like, yeah, let's do it. I think I can be a New York Times bestseller.
Oh, I had no idea I was going to be a New York Times bestseller. I had no idea it was going to take off the way it took off. Like, I wish I could do it again. I wish I had a formula where I could just like every year, you know, do that. But no, I mean, all I knew was I had a decent amount of money saved up. I was a finance guy. I knew I had, you know, something to fall back on. I knew I could always get another job somewhere because I had my MBA, I had my CFA, you know, had some experience. And I knew that I had my little business. I had an asset. I had those email subscribers that I could make money from. And I was actually making more from the business than I was from the job. So, you know, I like to tell the story about like I just came to the office and told my boss, like, you know, forget this job, I'm out of here. You know, but I was the safest. I did the safest thing you could possibly think. You know, didn't take much courage to not even like leave the job, but to get laid off and not look back, not go on any more interviews, and just focus on what was already working with the business.
That's good. I want to ask you too about that time. When you went and you sat down with Simon & Schuster, how much of an asset was it that you already had 6,000 plus sales, and then B, that you had that list? Like, I'm assuming that's something that came up, or something you would like, because you know I always tell people now, like whether you're trying to go traditional or anything, right? Like if you got your own assets, you got your own people, like you got a major bargaining chip. Like, how much did that help you out, you feel?
Yeah, that was the whole ball game right there. I sold 60,000 copies on my own. I had a big email list. Like, I had a platform, and they knew I'd be able to sell my own books through them. And so it wasn't much of a risk for them. So they were very low margin. Traditional publishing is a very low margin business. So they're looking for sure bets. They're looking for home runs. And I was about as close to it as you can get. Plus, you know, if you look at what I was doing, I was just kind of piggybacking off the restaurant brand names, you know, giving my version of Olive Garden, Red Lobster, Cheesecake Factory, KFC, all these different dishes. So to them, it was like easy to market and I already had a platform and it was a proven thing because I already did it self-published part-time, you know, from home, you know, so they're like, if he can do this, we can sell this thing.
All right. I got one more question about this. First time you went and you hit the New York Times bestseller list, what did that feel like? What was that moment like? Did you celebrate? You do anything special?
It was surreal. It was surreal. I mean, I didn't expect it. I had no idea. They just called me up one day and said, congratulations, you're on the New York Times bestseller list. I was number 6. I was on there for 6 weeks straight. I was beating people like Martha Stewart had a book out. I was ahead of her. That was so crazy. Yeah, we went on a vacation. We went out to dinner and stuff. We celebrated, but I didn't really know what it meant.
Yeah.
You know, I just knew like that's great. You did it, but I didn't know like how prestigious that was or what type of impact it would have and how I'd be able to use it going forward.
Probably how hard it was for for most people. It's like try their whole life to be like, my goal is that. But selling you, that really wasn't the goal.
Nah, it wasn't at all. Mm-mm.
All right, so after this time, you know, you got the books. You said 3 New York Times bestsellers, right?
No, one, just one.
One, okay.
So I've done 6 books.
6 books, okay.
3
self-published and 3
nine total.
Okay, so once you move through here, like, are you like, hey, I'm just gonna keep writing books for the rest of my life? Is that what you're thinking, or like, did you transition to something else?
Once I became a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah, once you got the books and stuff like that, you thinking like, hey, I'm just gonna keep writing books for the next 40 years, or?
Well, I didn't really know. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was gonna keep it going as long as it was hot. You know, they gave me another book deal and another one after that. I was like, okay, let's just keep working this. But I was also, you know, I was a direct marketer. I was an online marketer. I was, you know, in the Warrior Forum. I was selling stuff on ClickBank. So I knew that I was going to use that credibility to be a bigger internet marketer, a bigger influencer, someone bigger in our space.
What was the next thing that you sold that wasn't a book after that?
Oh, I sold a course about called Publicity Secrets. And there was this big forum called the Warrior Forum, and I partnered with the guy on there to put that out. He asked me to put it out. He advertised it to everybody on that forum because everybody wanted to know like how to, you know, because I was like one of them. I was just a guy chatting. You know, imagine a guy, somebody in your group, all of a sudden they blowing up, and everybody like, how are you doing this? How do you get on TV? And they're like, oh, look, he's on this show, he's on that show, and they were all like posting about.
It wasn't any good marketer does. When people ask about it, you make a course.
Right. Sell what you know how to do. Sell what you've accomplished. It's like the easiest thing to do.
It was good. So was this, because a lot of people also now know you as one of the founders, co-founders of WebinarCon, as a webinar expert. Is this the time you start doing webinars, or were you already doing them before that?
Yeah, no, I started doing webinars around 2010, about around that time when the 3rd book came out. And, you know, I was doing this selling low ticket little courses and whatnot. And my buddy Ty Cohen introduced me to webinars. I think I was the 2nd person to ever promote his webinar. We had pretty much me, him, and another guy named Vondre. We kind of joined together and we would promote webinars. Like every week we'd have a webinar we'd promote. Sometimes we'd throw in our own webinar, and then we'd have people promoting our webinars. So we just got into the webinar game back in 2010, 2011. And he introduced me to higher ticket stuff. Like, you know, we thought he was crazy. He was selling a course for $1,000, like $997. Like, man, and the first time
I can't do that today. Right. So back then it had to be real crazy.
So we told him, like, you're crazy, man. Like, we were like, this would sell better if you sold it for $300. He was like, I don't care. The numbers work out better at $1,000. Now he's selling stuff like $25,000.
Right.
Back then, he said that the reason you guys can't sell at that price point is because you don't believe that it's worth it, and people can sense that on the webinar. Me, I believe my thing is worth it based on what it can help people do. So that kind of like light bulb moment, and then I've been selling stuff $1,000 and up ever since. $2,000 on webinars, sometimes $3,000.
Looking back to when you first started webinars, what were some of the biggest mistakes that, like, you look back and was like, man, that was that. We look at our business all the time. Somebody asked me that day, they were like, hey, what were some business mistakes you made? No, they said, what is the biggest business mistake you made? And I was like, dude, I got like too many for just one. I said, like, every year I probably would realize, what are we doing? Like, and we ain't doing that, we ain't doing that. Like, what's if you look back, some of the biggest mistakes you made in webinars?
If you're a 6 or 7-figure entrepreneur, a black business owner, and you don't know where to go, if you feel like you're alone, if you feel like you don't have anyone to talk to that gets how you feel or gets the pressures of being a business owner in today's climate, guess what we do? I want to introduce you to the Traffic, Sales, and Profit Mastermind. Now, in the TSP Mastermind, we have a 12-month program that's going to help you reach your next 6, 7, or 8 figures in business over the course of a year. Now, along that year, we have one-on-one coaching, we have accountability, we have community, we have live events, and everything you need in order to reach the next level. For more information, visit us at www.trafficsalesandprofit.com.
And webinars, just focusing on, well, webinars in general, just trying to teach too much on webinars. Like, it's counterintuitive, but the more you teach, the more people feel like, so if you're teaching, and then trying to sell a course, they feel like they already got the course.
Yeah.
So that's one big mistake. Low ticket items on webinars is really a kind of a wasted opportunity. You have a room of people there, they're captive, they're ready to buy, and then you sell them something for $200. Only a certain percentage of people are gonna buy anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well, 1,000, 2,000, so higher ticket, or even get them, on the phone to get them to schedule an appointment and then sell your extreme high ticket stuff to 25,000 to 50,000, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Let me answer, but I want to break down each one of those. Because at first you talk about over teaching. I tell people, I think how I realized we were doing this with our original brand, Black American Kids. Because I would have people on a webinar that said, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And then they say, I'm going to go implement all the stuff you told me and they'll come back and buy. And people like, no.
Never come back.
Not only they'll come back, I'm sure they never implemented the stuff they learned that night with all those notes, right? And I still see that like all the time, like people just teach. I feel like people love to share information. Like if you talk to somebody, you work with them, like is it a formula? Like how do you tell them or get them to just stop sharing? So because we still want to give value, right? I think what I hear most times, people think that when you tell them don't overteach, they think they shouldn't. They think it's just like a gap, right? They either I'm showing them, give them everything, or I'm giving them nothing. Like where's the middle end?
Right. Well, there's two ways to look at it. There's two strategies you can use. If you want to teach a lot, have a solution that makes everything you just taught easier, right? So say if you're selling a done-for-you funnel setup service, you could talk about all the things that goes into creating your sales funnel, sales copy, and product creation and offers and all that stuff. And they'll thank you for the content, but they'll be like, I don't want to do all that. It seems hard. You're like, well, we'll do it for you. So that's one way, to use the content as a way to make your done-for-you more attractive, or your service, or whatever you're selling. The other way is to be what's called useful but incomplete. So you teach people what, you teach people why, but you don't necessarily teach them how to actually do it. You teach them the importance, why it's important to do these things, why this is a big opportunity, why they need to be doing this for their business, how this can help their business, grow their business, but you ain't necessarily teaching why. I mean, teaching how to do it. You sell the how, right? But I tell people nowadays, like courses, you don't want to position your product as a course, right? I know that sounds crazy, but when you think course, you think, okay, $300, $500. You think there's 1,000 courses out there. You think, okay, maybe I can find this information on YouTube.
Right.
So courses are becoming saturated, but you could take a course, add other things to it, add a group to it, add some type of, done with you to it, some type of done for you aspects to it. Call your thing a program. This is my program, XYZ program. This is not a course, here's why. Explain to them why it's not a course. So you frame it in a way that makes them see it as a much higher value. You could throw some type of group coaching in there with it. So the more things you throw in that anchor it at a higher price, when people think group coaching, when people think done for you, and then you start talking about like 10,000, 20,000, and then when you're selling that for 2,000, that becomes a deal. Like this is a bargain.
Yeah. And it's good to see that as a good way to combat course fatigue. Because I know with I hate to admit it to y'all, but with me, I have purchased some courses and not gone in. And I saw, I be like, man, it's good, but I'm too busy right now. Let me just buy it, and I'm going later, and later ain't never come. And I would see people all the time. When I sold courses, I would buy the course. It never ever it became a thing. Like I got to get these people to log in, right, and start actually consuming the information.
Well, it's things to consider, right? When you're positioning your offer, there's the lowest level is do it yourself. Right? Take this course, here's your login, do it yourself. It's the lowest level, the lowest thing you could charge for in terms of price point, what they see, and it gets the lowest results for people, right? Then you have done with you, right? My team will do it with you. You know, if you could, you have to consider how your business works. Like, can you do something with the client? Can you coach them on it? Can you look over their shoulder? Done with you is a little bit more. Done for you is like the next level. When it's done for you, if people can just, like, the more people can feel like it's an investment, right? So when you think of courses, you might think 500 to 1,000. When you think of investment, you know, people will invest their entire bank account. They will invest hundreds of thousands, whatever they have, because they know, you know, if they don't invest it, it's losing value, right? So people will spend whatever if it's an investment, especially if it's proof, especially if there's guarantees, especially if they believe that they're gonna put money in, make money out. So the more you can position your offer as an investment, and the less they have to do, right? It's like, you know, the more they have to do, the less they're willing to pay. The less they have to do, the more they're willing to pay.
That's true. That's good. Let me ask for the second part you said around mistakes. You said people selling stuff is low ticket, wasted opportunity. Let's talk, because one question I get a lot of times about webinar is even like what is high ticket, right? Because they like, people always like, give me a number, like what is high ticket? And then what do you recommend when it comes to selling high ticket? Like what's the limit? Because I have people say sometimes, you know, they're like, oh, this amount, you got to get them on the phone, right? You can't sell as much. Like how much, you've been around a long time, like even how much have you seen somebody sell high ticket straight on a webinar without ever talking to the person?
I mean, in my opinion, 2,500, 3,000, you start to get to that point where people want to talk to you one-on-one, where you need to
Ask them
put out to them one-on-one, get to know exactly their needs, customize something for them, get them on the phone. So, I mean, I think it depends on industry and whatnot, but, you know, for expert industry, for coaches, consultants, people selling courses, people selling done-for-you stuff, I think 3,000, 2,500, 3,000. So you could have like, you know, 2,500 or 3 payments of 1,000, you know, as your price option. But beyond that, I mean, it's all about testing too, test to see what works. But that's what I found is the thing. But even to sell 3,000, you got to be good, really good.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
Another thing you could do, I mean, I'm not totally against low ticket if it leads to a higher ticket, right? So I'm not totally against selling something for $300 if all those customers, you take those customers, put them on the phone, sell them something higher. You know, have someone reach out, have a setter or somebody reach out to those folks, offer them something else. So have an immediate upsell. A lot of people do webinars and they think it's just supposed to be just that one product, but you could have upsell, you could have a funnel in as part of your webinar offer as well.
That's good. I don't think we actually have ever had a back-end funnel to upsell straight off of when we sell on a webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do that.
That's good. Never mind. I'm like, let me put a pinpoint in this. Got stuff to tell the team when we get done with this shoot.
Right. The invoice will be in the mail. But so here's the thing with an upsell is like, you don't want to sell someone a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and then you only give them the peanut butter and jelly. Then once they buy it, they're like, okay, well, the bread is extra.
Exactly.
You know, I don't know if that's a good analogy. No,
that makes sense. Who's going with it? Yeah.
But you want people to, whatever you're selling, you want it to fulfill whatever, you know, benefit that is supposed to fulfill, whatever you promise. That's a standalone. And you want the upsell to be complementary, to enhance, or be completely different products altogether, but something else they may need. So you buy that camera, you know, the camera is the camera. You're not going to sell them like, oh, you need a plug-in for that camera. But you will say,
hold on, Apple does that all the time.
But you will say you need a tripod.
Yeah, right.
You know, to hold that camera on. That would be your upsell. So make it complementary, but not a requirement of the purchase.
God, don't be Apple. I get his phone, but I ain't give you the charger with it, right?
Right.
I give you the charger with the 10-centimeter cord.
Nobody likes that, but right, they can get away with it.
All right, good stuff. So I love it. So now we know how much to teach or not to teach. We talked about too how we can set the price points and such. What are you seeing as successful ways for new people that are new to web, don't have a massive audience, to get people onto their webinars? Because that's another problem point I see where, you know, somebody's like, hey, I did a webinar, I didn't sell as much as I wanted. One of my first questions, like always, like, how many people are on it? And it's like they never did enough to get enough people even registered so that all of the other numbers going to work out. Like what tips you give people, like how to get more people on their actual webinars?
Right. Well, traffic. You know, that's one of your 3 things that you teach, right? Traffic, sales, and profits. Like the first thing, right? So you got to get traffic. You got to, I mean, it's not easy. It's not. I won't pretend that it's easy to get people on a webinar. It helps if you have some type of big idea, some type of big trend that you're piggybacking off of, some type of thing that people really want to know about, something that's recent in the top of their mind right now, where they're like, okay, I need to learn this, I need to get on this webinar. That will help your show rate, but you still got to get it in front of people. So you just exhaust every opportunity you have, your social platform, whoever you can get from there, your email list, your running ads to it. But then you have to know your numbers, and so I mean, we have this event, webinar con. A lot of people come to that event to do what's called cross promotions. So most of the people that have a webinar offer, they have what's called an affiliate program, where they'll give a commission for people that refer sales or for people that promote their webinar. So that's probably the easiest way. Just have a good presentation and approach someone like, hey, I have this presentation on XYZ. I think it'll really help your audience. Would you be willing to show them this presentation? And by the way, I have this offer also. It'll give you 40%, 50%, whatever it might be, for everybody on that presentation that buys. So then it becomes, just knowing your numbers, being able to communicate, like we've done this webinar. This is what we usually do per attendee. Like for each attendee you bring on, we usually do $200 in sales per attendee. Just knowing your numbers, and just also just being able to reciprocate in that instance. If you want someone to promote you, can you promote them? So it's a matter of building your list, building your audience. So webinars also don't have to be a top of the funnel thing. You can have a low ticket thing that leads people into your webinar, right? The webinar could be a bonus training for everybody to buy as the low ticket thing, and then you can focus your sales on the webinar. You could also turn your webinar into a workshop where you're charging, maybe you're charging $100 for people to attend this workshop. And that in that instance, you want to give them content, but you also want to parlay that into your offer as well. So there's many ways you could take it, but it's just a matter of, I would say, just getting in the room, getting in the game, getting to know, seeing what other people are doing, to attending events like yours, just seeing how other people are promoting their stuff, and just being a known entity where people want to do business with you and do cross promotions and joint ventures. That is just really getting good at generating traffic. There's also ways you can do it with, paying Instagram influencers and influencers to do, it's called shout pages or shout outs, to shout out your offer where you're giving out this free webinar or free event. You want to turn your webinar into an event, and look at it like you're promoting a movie or something. Like, what's the background theme of this thing that people really want to know? What's going to attract them to get into this webinar? Don't just think of it as just, I'm just going to do a webinar. Think of it as, I'm doing this event. I'm getting the people on this event. Maybe you have an encore for the webinar as well. So after the webinar is another thing where you want to maximize the amount of people that see that presentation, right? So I can go on for days with.
Nah, keep going. I'm sort of people. Somebody home right now with all of those, like, well, don't stop.
Right. But so the thing with a webinar is, like, you can have two versions of it. You can have an evergreen version that plays like just in time or every 30 minutes, like a pre-recorded version. It helps if you have people like monitoring the chat to make it feel live, to interact with the people while they're watching their presentation. If someone asks you, is it live? You can say, we're here with you live. How can I help you?
Yeah.
If you have that works. You'll be able to get more people to see it. The other way, if you do it live, only a percentage of people are going to see it. Maybe, if you sign up, maybe 25, 30% of the people will see that particular presentation. So now you got 70% of the people that haven't seen it yet. So you run an encore, you run a replay, you do it at different times. And I like to do this thing called a webinar recap, right? So that's taking the main parts from your webinar presentation, making a shorter version of it, a shorter video, like a recap, highlighting the things they need to know, and then still having your offer in there.
Okay.
So some people are just not going to watch a 3-hour presentation, 2-hour, whatever it might be. Some people just need a different format. Maybe they need to split. Maybe you need to split it into 3 shorter videos. Maybe you need to do a recap. Maybe you need to do a PDF summary. But you kind of exhaust all opportunities with the goal of, I want to get as many people as possible that registered to actually watch, to see my offer. Right? And when you think of it in those terms, you can do better than you would normally.
That's good. I feel like, especially today, and it's going to get worse as we go on, we're fighting for attention so much to get people just to be like, hey, over here, I got this thing. And I think what you said is so important because nobody's looking for like another webinar. Ain't nobody like, ain't like a TV show like, everybody have a line like, hey, anybody found any good webinars I can watch this week, right? I ain't got nothing to do. But like I said, really, I'm thinking about the ones I go to. Like you said, they brought my attention to it. They've made it like an event. It almost feel like it's like a live training summit conference or something that I'm going to. And I feel like I'm getting some value out of it, right? And then most time, by the time if they're doing good, way before we get to the end, I'm just like, they got something I can buy.
Right.
I'm like sometimes I'm like, look, I wish we could skip to the end. Like, do we got something I could buy and I'm ready to go? So good. So I did want to talk about something before we left because what you've done a great job of, I think, is then beginning to move internet money into other investments and stuff like that. I've heard one of the things is, I kind of came into the space. I'd heard so many stories of people who had it all, lost it all. I was like, man, like I like it literally scared me to have all my money in my business, right? Because I'm like, I don't know what's around the corner, and I don't want to see what's around the corner, right? So I want to do things now. When I listen to people, I talk to people. You've done a great job. It looks like I said, making money online and then moving into other asset classes, things like real estate. We talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my biggest fear too, is like having to go back.
Right.
Like, a job or having to go back to like not having money. So, I mean, one of my influences was the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and how he talks about like you build up your assets until the assets are enough to pay for your lifestyle. So that was my whole goal, was to do that. And I got thrown into real estate early on in 2007-ish, where my mother's house went into a foreclosure. Right, so my brother and sister were still living there at the time, and she asked me for help, so I took over the payments. She inherited the house from my grandfather, could never really afford it, and I took over the payments for the house, and it got me into real estate. And the house had a lot of equity, and it was a two-family house, so I immediately had tenants upstairs that I was responsible for collecting rent from, and I just started studying everything about real estate, started talking to different people. I took out a home equity line on that house and used it to buy my first investment property. And I started looking for different cash flow markets, markets that you have multifamily investment potential. So that's how I really got into real estate. And I just saw it as, if I could just get this to a certain number, and of course that number increases over time. But back then I thought if I can just get it to $10,000 a month, paying me profit, I'll be set. That was $20,000, that was $30,000. I'm like, well, how far can I take this? So so it's like two ways to look at it. What you've done is smart too in terms of investing back in your business, because there's no better return. Like real estate can't compare to investing back in your business, customer acquisition, building this big thing. Personally, me, like I started in 2001 in this business, and I was never sure that it was going to be something that was going to last, like, this long, like 2 decades later. I had no idea. So I'm like, I'm going to milk this thing. I'm going to invest my money wisely, because this could go away any day.
Yeah.
So sometimes I wish I would have taken more of the money, put it back to the business and customer acquisition, because I was taking most of it just buying properties with it. Like now I'm up to 40 units and I have 14 buildings, 10 properties. 4 of the buildings have 2 properties on it. So 14 total buildings, 10 properties. I actually bought 3 in January before the rates started going real high. So it's been great for me. It's been great for my family. It's great to know that you have a certain amount of money every month, no matter what. You can take the month off. Yeah, just, because people are not going to stop paying their rent. If you're in a good area, even if they stop paying, you can get them out, put other people in. So the thing to know, though, it's not easy. Like I took some lumps with the real estate game. Absolutely. Like I've had properties where I had to get drug dealers out, at crackheads, at people shoot each other, and these are not even properties in the super like hood. It was like blue collar areas, but it's just a lot of situations I had to work through. I had property managers that were duplicating invoices and taking money and hiding them, taking cash and not paying me the rent. It was, it took a while to build it up, and it doesn't just start with like, it's like you don't want to just have one property. You want to have multiple properties where the problems kind of offset each other. Right. This property is doing bad. This one's doing good. It kind of offsets. But there's no better situation in terms of taxes. Right. All that depreciation, all those properties are write off every year. in terms of just steady long-term investment growth. Like the properties appreciate every year a certain amount. Like the other thing about multifamily properties, and yeah, Julian Gordon
Exactly.
is like
Yep.
a multifamily.
Yep.
He's a buddy of ours. The other thing about multifamily properties is their value is supported by the rents. So like a regular property, it can go up, it can go down, and go down. And market crashes, it can go down 30% or whatever. But people are always willing to invest in something that's going to give them 8%, 10%. So it's a natural floor to it. So it can only go down a certain amount because someone's going to be willing to pay for it based on the rents, as long as you don't lower the rents. And I've never lowered the rents since doing this. So yeah, it's just one of the best investments, one of the best things I've done.
Nice. If you could only do one, real estate or entrepreneurship, which one would you pick?
That's tough. That's tough. Well, I mean, the real estate is a form of entrepreneurship and investing. But, you know, like doing what I do, like getting to meet cool people like you and do your podcast, it kind of gives you purpose. It kind of gives you, you know, something to look forward to, something exciting, something creative to do. So I would do this because this funds the other thing,
Yeah.
you know, and not vice versa. So
Cool. I love it. All right. So people are watching. How can they get a hold of you? You talked about Webinar Con. How can they learn about that? Can attend that. Phenomenal event, right? I was there last year. I spoke right last year, and I'm bringing folks back with me. Ever since I was there, people were like, "What's that thing you was at? I want to go." Actually, just last week I was telling somebody about Webinar Con and needed to be there because I was like, it's not a lot of places you can go where there are high level conversations, and they're doing work and, you know, creating webinars and making money. So I tell them, hey, you need to get in there. How can people find out about that and follow you?
I appreciate that, absolutely. And that's the whole goal of Webinar Con, is to only attract high-level people, because people that just getting started are scared to death to do webinars, so they don't show up to Webinar Con, you know. Plus, so you can go to webinarcon.com. Con is short for conference. I can't tell you how many times people think a con. What is this con? Like, you know, a con, like Comic Con.
Right.
Webinar Con.
Maybe you conning people with these webinars.
Right. I make jokes about that during the event too. It's hilarious. But yeah, webinarcon.com. If you want to get in contact with me, rondouglas.com, or Instagram, Mr. Ron Douglas, or Facebook, just Ron Douglas.
All right, there we go. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming through. I want to thank you all again for watching another episode of Traffic Sales and Profit Show. We'll see you next week with another amazing guest, only here. Check us out.
The Combo, your home for conversations on Black entrepreneurship and wealth, available on your favorite platforms.